Thank you for visiting us. This episode of our podcast is going to be a lot of fun. I'm joined by my good buddy Ben Ferguson,
Hi,
who
Marcus.
is an amazing real estate agent and has been for how many years?
I think our careers kind of mirror each other. It's around 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got hooked up with you many moons ago, Marcus.
How amazing is that? We've worked together for over 20 years.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Man.
And lots of good times. Lots of fun.
And you know what? So what does that tell you? We've both been very successful in this real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you?
That maybe us hanging out together had something to do with that.
Oh, I was going to say anybody could have made money in this business over the last 20 years.
I don't know about that, but certainly our friendship as business partners at times, as just kind of allies, has been great.
Yeah, I love working with you.
Yeah, it's always when you get out of bed in the morning and maybe you have a tough day, when you're working with people that you trust and you like working with, it's a difference maker. Yeah.
Like every time you've ever phoned my phone, I will smile that you're calling me.
Same. And you know what? When we talk, it feels like 5 minutes. And then I look at the phone and it's been like 57 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy moly.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what happens when you like talking to someone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it goes by quick.
It goes by quick. And then there's the opposite does happen sometimes.
Like with Evan?
No, we all love Evan.
No, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. 20 years. Matt and I have been selling real estate for, and different team members over that period. But we've been consistent as business partners, and really for 20 years in real estate, but then 10 years before that.
I was going to ask you about
We're
that.
talking about 30 years between the nightclub stuff and events and music and real estate and investing. And it's been, 30 plus years.
I love some of your stories about like picking up Carl Cox in Buffalo and like driving him.
We almost need a podcast for just the old nightclub stories.
Yeah.
But, lots of fun times. And I think we made alliances in that period that kind of launched us in real estate that have been, maybe a launching pad for success, just in terms of networking and friends and business skills, street business skills initially, and then kind of polishing it a little more.
Have you noticed in like the 20 years that you've been in real estate, have things felt as weird as they feel right now?
I think there's been blips in the radar. It hasn't been all confidence the whole time. I mean, we've had times that money's just flying around like there's no tomorrow. And we've had times where people have been a little more cautious. I would say they're more cautious than ever right now. But I do see it as just a small kind of blip in an otherwise strong real estate market. Because really we're driven by interest rates increasing so quickly here. That's everything else is good. The immigration, the desirability for people to live in Canada. I mean, people are talking about living here all over the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, we're seeing a little bit of a period now where there's some caution, and affordability is being
Attacked with a jackhammer.
It is. And that's just, it's not that they don't want to buy. They can't. Our buyer pool is getting smaller and smaller. And the move up people, when they realize what happens with their interest rate that they're breaking, are thinking, whoa.
There's a
lot of those phone calls coming to me.
This attempt to make housing more affordable in Canada needs to get through a period where housing will be absolutely unaffordable. Right? Like, there's no way interest rates can go down until interest rates really dramatically impact the economy.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Like, we need to. I was explaining this I had a lunch with a buddy of mine who's in the mortgage business, like has a big fund. And I was like, the way I kind of started thinking about it now was like the Bank of Canada made a decision to shoot the economy. Like they got a gun and they were like, okay, economy, I'm going to shoot you.
Because they saw inflation as more important.
Because they were so worried about inflation.
Which it is an important consideration, obviously.
And they were like, they want the economy to lose a certain amount of blood, and they want the blood pressure to reach a certain level, and like it needs to hit a certain metrics of dire in order for the Bank of Canada to bring their patient back to life. And the only good thing about it is that like if someone's going to get shot, the best place for them to get shot is like in the operating room of the hospital.
Well, I mean, moving inflation down is obviously a good thing, but maybe it did have to happen, but it's too fast, isn't it?
So, I mean,
too fast and too much.
That we'll only know that after, right?
It's like a science experiment, really, right?
Right. So, but I think it's like a science experiment that was created from the last science experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Like we tried a science experiment by attempting like shutting an economy down and giving everybody universal basic income, pumping money into the economy for COVID. That was the first science experiment.
Yes.
And the result of it, we thought the result of it was going to be like this beautiful, smooth sailing back into an open and normalized economy. But the actual result was inflation. So now we're trying another science experiment to get rid of the inflation.
Yeah, in a short period, if you just Google back and you just read stuff from earlier this year, the Benjamin Talls of the world, they were saying that there was no way they thought this was going to be necessary to have this much pain in this short of a period earlier this year.
Matt, you want to put the chart up? I sent Matt a chart earlier. Just show like it's just this. It so dramatically shows how high mortgage rates have gotten in such a short period of time.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like we're going higher.
You think that's likely?
Well, I think the Federal Reserve just increased 50 basis points today, and their commentary is that the federal funds rate probably has another 1% to go. And I don't know that necessarily the Bank of Canada is going to move in lockstep with the Federal Reserve, but certainly pretty close. Like all the G7 countries are certainly kind of have banded together to attack inflation, to address inflation. So I think, we probably are going to see, at least 50 basis points of additional tightening here. I hope there is no more than that. Like the real problem, like when we talk about like, I like to think that everything is going to be fine.
Yes.
Right?
And it is.
And everything will be fine.
Yes. It will be. Yeah.
It is the amount of time that things will be painful for that stresses me out. So like these increases in interest rates haven't been really felt yet. Like the people that
it's
are
about 12 months to kind of shake them because they've got their rate holds and for it to work its way through the economy.
Yeah. Anytime monetary policy changes, it takes 12 to 18 months for people to feel it. Like we've had so many central bankers explain to us, the general populace, what monetary policy does. We had Stephen Polo's, the guy that was before Tiff Macklin would tell us, right now there's so much debt that a smaller move in the overnight rate or the prime rate creates a more dramatic impact on the economy. Then we're told that any impact on the economy isn't felt until 12 to 18 months later. Well, we just went through the largest percentage increases in our overnight rate that we've ever seen in a period of time that we've been told you can't measure the impact on. So I think at the very least, I think it's kind of agreed upon that the first kind of 6 months of 2023 are going to be about like the more of the same.
But we saw November, we didn't see prices decrease. they get stable, 1% decrease or something.
Right.
So the bleeding had kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Things had kind of settled in a bit. But I think, focusing on, there's so many people, if you're on Twitter and you're kind of reading the world's ending. And I think we can look at the positive parts here, is that all the underlying stuff, not other than the interest rate increase, is good. The underlying fundamentals are good. And I think that we're going to see interest rates can go down, not to where they were. Because I don't know where your thoughts are on that, but that's probably that we may not see that in our lifetime again, like as low as they went.
I think if we do, it's because we go into a bad recession.
Right.
I think we should all hope that we see 150, maybe 2 percentage points come off of rates, like off of the prime rate. So think about a prime rate that's between 4 and 5,
right?
Not 7.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the more dramatic the drop is after the fact, like today, the Federal Reserve came out and they announced 50 basis points of tightening. And the result was the market priced in 100 basis points of easing in 2024.
Right.
Like this inverted bond yield curve of having 2-year treasuries so much higher than 10-year treasuries is basically like the bond market telling whoever wants to pay attention that they believe that these high rates are just simply not sustainable for any extended period of time.
Right.
And then the more inverted it goes, so like the bigger the differential between the 2 and the 10, the more of a warning sign it's flashing, right? Like, hey, this will cause real damage.
But what I can speak of as being in the real estate trenches, and where my thoughts are that when interest rates start to pull back, we're going to see a real estate rebound quickly. So we're in a time now that you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can shop for a home, you can negotiate a good price, and then you can enjoy lower interest rates on the back end of your first 5 years or whatever. Right? You're gonna have a period of time there where you're gonna have higher rates. But if you're buying, a $2 million house for 1.5, I mean, who cares?
You can absorb the rate.
A couple years of a higher variable rate mortgage,
yeah,
and then you're a point and a half down in a couple years.
Net present value being 0, you just earned 5 percentage points every year.
Right?
So you just bought your place for $500,000 less. You can afford an extra $100,000 every single year.
Yeah.
To pay in interest for 5 years. So until properties restabilize.
Yeah, because if you look at everything else and going back to kind of looking at the positive things, is that there is a housing crisis. There are not enough homes. Immigration is peaking. These people need a place to live. And I think everything will be good. We just got to sharpen our pencils, watch our expenses, and make intelligent decisions, like informed, intelligent decisions.
So what would you say to somebody that comes to you and they're like, okay, listen, I want you to do a listing presentation.
Right.
And I got to get this property out on the market as soon as possible because I am drowning in my variable rate mortgage and the credit card debt that I have accumulated because of the additional money that I'm pouring into my variable rate mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case-by-case basis, right? The rental market's flying. It may make more sense for that person to keep that property and put a tenant in it for a couple of years and then reevaluate when the tenant's on their way out.
That's why you're the best.
Well, I mean,
because you're like you are genuinely unbiased with your clients. Like Cannect, we pride ourselves on being unbiased with our clients.
Yes,
you are genuinely like if you were to I knew you would answer this way because like genuinely, if somebody gave you that story, you wouldn't fear monger them into selling the property. You would say, listen, like right now is probably the worst time to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It might
doesn't mean you can't, and it may mean that you're giving the sale an attempt and to see what happens. To see there's less fish in the sea for sure, but there are fish, and it also depends the type of product that you have to sell. And
what's the worst thing to sell right now?
Well, I mean, I think in kind of downtown urban communities, well finished product is selling well. Not in the high luxury price point. I mean, that's slower for sure. And we have to keep that in mind when we look at price decreases, is there's so few trading at really high prices that the ones that are like in the under $2 million world, their decreases are a lot less.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Benjamin Tall pointed that out. Like so much stuff.
Oh, you're like buddies with Benjamin Tall?
No, I mean, we just went to a thing and he was speaking, and then I looked at his stuff afterwards, and it's not buddies with him, but I have the same name. I like the way he breaks down things. No, my middle name isn't Tal. There's so
I like his thick Israeli accent.
He's good at breaking down
he's
things
good.
for people for sure. It's usually the end up with a bit of levity and the necessary things to kind of string people along to stay interested in finance talk for long periods. You do the same, actually. You and Benjamin should go for lunch
with remarkably less knowledge.
Different knowledge, not less. Well, maybe a little more street skills.
Maybe
street smarts. Yeah. But yeah, way less expensive homes. When way less expensive homes sell on the luxury side of things, and then we're looking at the data in a broad spectrum, we're seeing, price decreases that are really probably less in lower prices. So to answer your question, what's harder stuff to sell? The communities that we mostly folk on, more urban, there's lots of sellable products still. If it's finished right, the market is less forgiving. Stuff that's not finished or speculative type, that's a great time to be buying that stuff.
Yeah.
You're cash heavy, and you can pick up some stuff and fix it up, because the speculative stuff, the flippers, developers,
smoked.
That's sitting. Nice stuff. I mean, there's still people shopping for nice stuff, and you can sell. You just have to make a kind of informed decision on, each on an individual basis, case by case basis, to figure out what your best strategy is.
I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing how the year over year sales volume has dropped so much.
Yeah.
Part of me says like, well, this is a good thing because people that were subjected to the stress test and are maybe not comfortable with the amount of money that they're spending in interest, but are capable of maintaining those interest payments, aren't entering a market when they don't need to. Like they don't want to port a mortgage. They don't, want to move. Like
you're
you were
talking
saying.
about transactions, or prices. Okay,
transactions, not prices.
Yeah. I mean, you had the year before. You had a super high flying year that was the most ever transactions.
Was it really?
Or up there?
Okay.
And so you're comparing. It's like you're comparing to a year like that. If you go back a few more years, you're going to get to numbers that are closer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a fair comparison because it was really kind of like.
But this past 2022 was like, or at the second half of 2022 was like months were being printed that were like 20-year lows of
you're
transactions.
Right. Because I know year over year, it was busy the early part of this year. So if you take the aggregate of the year, you're in better shape than if you start looking at that.
The last half of the year.
You're right.
Right.
Last half.
But I wonder that we know that there's a finite timeline to rate hikes, right? Like we know that there is an objective. The objective is, there's some really cool stuff that I've read that's all kind of all works together quite well, I would say. So we know that the objective is to eliminate inflation. In order to eliminate inflation, you got to take money out of people's wallets and prevent them from being able to spend it. You got to make sure that the labor market isn't as tight as it is right now. So you have more people trying to find work, so more people can be employed and the labor market can loosen. And the idea now is when we reach that point of that pain being felt in the market, the central bank will come out and say, we're done increasing interest rates. We've done our job. And at this point, we're going to look to stabilize the economy by perhaps a rate drop in the coming months. That's the moment when people are going to be flooding back into the real estate market, and they're going to have confidence to make buying decisions. Everyone's going to be taking a variable rate mortgage. They're going to be watching their rates drop.
I would say that, yeah, I would agree with that. But I would also think that there's people that have just, the affordability isn't there. It's not a choice right now.
Mm-hmm.
When they actually do the numbers, that they can't get an approval based on where we're at.
Like an 8%
or when
qualifying rate.
or when they're breaking their current mortgage, it makes no sense.
Right.
Because they're sitting on a 2.5% and they want to upgrade to a 4-bedroom house from a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, that's
and then they call my friend Marcus and he says, well, do you know what's going to happen to your payments?
Yeah.
So it's more about that, in my opinion, than the confidence in Toronto real estate. And I can only speak from my little world here in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I think things can be worse outside the city. I think there's, of course I should stay away from Twitter and stuff sometimes, but like there's people complaining that they've bought pre-construction for too expensive and picketing in Brampton.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like lots of that kind of stuff happening. And people that have bought pre-construction on the luxury side of things at really high per square foot pricing, like that makes me nervous.
Like $2,500 a foot.
Not my client.
Like I was going to ask
we never
you,
guide people.
So I wanted to ask you about that. Like there are buildings like that the one.
Yes.
Or like some of these Yorkville developments where like prices were like close to $3,000 a foot.
Appraisal is going to become an issue. And I mean, that's what these people are picketing in Brampton, that they've bought a townhouse at Chinguzi and something or other for towards $2 million. And they're getting appraisals, for whatever, 1.5, or I'm just guessing, but they can't close.
Same problem.
There's a lot of people that are not going to be able to close unless maybe the developer's in the financial position to give them a second.
Which unfortunately they simply are not.
You don't think so?
I don't how can you possibly lean?
It's too much. I know there's too much.
Like not every developer has unlimited capital at 0% interest.
No,
right?
I know. They'd have to get, if it was a small gap, it would be one thing, but they're probably running things knowing where development levies are and how much money they have, how thin their profit margin is with everything. They're probably running on not enough meat there to be able to be like, oh, you're $250 short. We'll give you a second at 5% or something. Like it's probably
like
that's what I was thinking.
A 5% second is lower. It's like below prime.
So if you've sold out a development in Brampton and no one can close, there's 100 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know when it closes and I don't know all the minor details. And again, I should say that I should stay away from Twitter because these are the people that make you think the sky's falling. And I don't think it is at all. I think I'm actually here to maybe make a public service announcement that everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. But
when exactly? Let's make a call. When do you think we will say, "Whew, it's all over"? When? What date? Specific date. I'm looking for.
When will we?
Day.
When you and I will go out for lunch.
Yeah. Maybe dinner.
With champagne.
Maybe dinner.
And say interest rates are starting to come down.
Yes.
0.5 point or 3/4 of a point.
We've never actually had like champagne together. I'm not a big champagne guy.
No.
Are you a big champagne guy?
What do we, maybe at Barbarian or something, did we go there and drink? No.
Red wine. Maybe drink some red wine. Usually we have a couple beers.
Yeah.
I feel like
so.
Anyways.
Or maybe red wine there. Yeah. I think like a year from now, we'll be in a better position.
1 year.
Don't you?
Listen, for sure, I think 1 year from now.
Yes.
I think that we probably have confidence sooner than 1 year from now. Like, I think that like, I don't know. I think what we're going to see is it's going to get a little worse. It's going to get a little tighter. Things are going to get a little more difficult. And at that point, then things will get better. Because I think that part of this is a psychological game. I read this Bank of Montreal report the other day, which was like many Canadians are anticipating the rates to drop soon. And that is exactly why they can't drop soon.
Mm.
And I liked it. I was
Yeah.
like, that's a good quote. Like sometimes these economists have these great quotes. That wasn't the exact quote, but it was close to that. So it is a psychological game, right?
Well, there's a confidence thing, and I wasn't saying there wasn't when I said the affordability, and it's obviously there's a bunch of different positions people are in.
Yeah.
And of course, confidence plays a role.
But the biggest impact will be supply. It'll be on the supply side, both the biggest contributor to the problem and the biggest contributor to the solution. So the biggest contributor to the problem is going to be how much damage are we not properly quantifying that we're inflicting upon homeowners right now, the guys that are holding on, the guys and gals, the families that this is not easy for. Like psychologically,
that they bought in the last few years,
3 years,
and yes, and
psychologically drained,
but
anxiety,
when those renewals come up, and they have to be looking at. I mean, of course, there's an emphasis on inflation, but there has to be a consideration also as these mortgage renewals come up. If people are going to just basically throw the keys in the air and just say,
listen, if this goes on for another year, we will have effectively changed housing affordability for like 80% of homeowners. Those that are in a variable rate mortgage, instantaneous, and all of these people that have gone through that have a 5-year fixed or less that are being forced to renew in the next year or two, right? Like we're affecting it. We've affected it for the last year for everybody. We're going to affect them for another year. So we got all the variable rate guys and gals, and then we've got a great percentage of the 5-year fixed. There's a chart that I was looking at that's like, it's close to like 75-80% of the total mortgage volume that's going to have to reset at this point. And the other thing is, you think that it's all 5-year fixed rate mortgages and that it would be evenly distributed between years 1 through 5.
Yeah.
But 75% of all mortgages in Canada break before year 5 anyways, because people need money.
But what percentage of people have variable and what percentage are fixed?
Canada is much higher on the fixed side than on the variable side.
Okay.
Like I don't want to say 70-30 for sure, but pretty close.
And then the average term length is what?
5 years.
3 to 5 years. Or?
But the average actual term length is something like 3.5 years. So we can expect
because of the broken one.
Because people breaking them because they move or they need capital. So now you've got to kind of heuristically model that the impact on extending the average life of a 5-year fixed rate mortgage. I know that sounds funny, but like 5-year fixed rate mortgage average life right now is probably closer to 3.5 years. So what are we going to push that out to? Maybe 4, like maybe the percentage of people who will not break to move or break to refinance will increase, thereby extending out the kind of average lifespan of a 5-year fixed rate mortgage. But this all going to say that it's the supply issue. It's if we get too many people that say that will break those 5 years, but they'll break them because they're selling. They'll break them because their credit, the amount that they're carrying in credit is too high.
They can't afford it.
Listen, psychologically, the erosion of your equity, if you're watching that happen and you're like, okay, what's my time horizon? I would say, like, for us, the number one thing that people are concerned about right now is how much longer do I have to cover these bills? How much longer do I need to pay these higher interest rates? How much longer do I need to watch the erosion of my equity for until I have to sell?
Well, we certainly haven't seen panic selling in the urban communities at all.
Right.
Like zero.
So the hope is
there's no supply.
Right.
Prices have come down, but there's not much good supply out there.
Right.
So I think people know in their hearts that they're sitting on something good.
They're holding on.
And they know the demand is there. The rental, first of all, the rental market, the rent increase shows us how hot the demand is still to live in Toronto.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah,
because that's a great measure. Like, these are people that would probably be buying. They're pushed into that market because of the interest rates. So we know the demand is there. We know they want to live in Toronto. The interest rates are a short-term, slowdown, stalling of them getting into the home that they want to own. And it will turn around as fast as it, in the other direction, as fast as it went down.
It's just the drop is going to be dictated by how much excess supply hits the market when people make a decision that they can't hold on. And the pivot in rates will happen faster the sooner a little bit of that supply hits the market.
Yeah.
So like it's like we're holding up the gates right now of like, listen, market still has to move, right? So when we see a year-over-year drop in activity, like we saw the last 6 months of 2022, that activity has to come back into the market in some way. And hopefully it comes back in a limited way. We will see a further reduction in pricing, I think. But the moment that happens is when we'll get some stability on where rates are going to be. Until then, we're going to keep seeing Federal Reserve governors and central bank governors coming out and saying, yeah, we still haven't tackled inflation fully yet. We're going to give we're going to throw another 25 basis points on top of the rate.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the supply part now that we're going to worry about. Just how mitigated is it going to be? How much can people hold on? And I mean, the ideal situation is it just decimates consumer spending. Ideally, and Canadians are very much like this, right? Like Canadians are smart and they are conservative and they realize the importance of the home, and they will avoid paying everything else and they'll continue to pay for the house.
And when you're talking about Toronto specifically, we're not adding any freehold. So if the conversation moves to type of product,
I got to take my jacket off.
The type of product, I mean, again, the luxury condo market kind of concerns me. There's a fair amount coming online. There's a fair amount of people that paid a lot of money for luxury condos pre-construction. But when you talk about freehold, we're not adding any supply. There's the odd time here and there you get a severed lot, like Matt and I are building those two houses.
Yeah.
So we've severed a wide lot and we're adding one home to Leslieville. I think there might have been
bastards. Leave Leslieville the way it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Jerk.
Yeah, I know. But so we've added one home there, and there's a few other of those in the whole area. I mean, we're not adding freehold. There's not much freehold being added anywhere.
No.
So I mean, you're the supply side of things, where you see people panic sell. I certainly see the freehold side of things and the value condo market as being safe.
Like the 600 square foot units.
Those are liquid. Those are the first time buyer. If you're buying something and you're looking at
market needs
$900, $1,000 a foot, and across the street is the fancy one coming in that's $1,400, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a foot. Doesn't make sense.
What do you think the low will be, the low print on a per square foot price of a condo? Not luxury product. Average condo.
It's in the $1,000 a foot.
Like you don't think it'll go lower than $1,000 a foot?
Well, I mean, there's certainly on average for downtown. It'll be interesting to say because you're still going to have even the luxury stuff with the price decrease will still be highish. So as those new ones come online, that's bringing your per square foot numbers up, But it'll be interesting to see when the appraisals, when some of these buildings register, if they come in.
They're not.
I think this is a time when you're going to have appraisers kind of scratching their chin a little bit and being a little more conservative with.
Yeah, what the biggest line item expense on my mortgage brokerages will be this year? Christmas presents to appraisers.
Are they envelopes or what are they?
Yeah, just kidding. You just got to be nice. It's like everything else in business, right? Like you have to treat, you can't just think you're just like.
Can you see that one in? Just plug the fixture right there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like everything else in business, right? You can't just like think like, okay, I am going to treat my customer really well, but I'm a shitty person, so I'm going to treat everybody else bad and just hammer everybody to get things done. You actually have to just genuinely partner with all of the people around you or else you're screwed, especially in a situation like this. If your appraiser doesn't like you, if the appraisers that you have working with you don't like you and you don't communicate effectively with them, like, hey, Mr. Appraiser, Ben's buying this condo. He's a great borrower. He's got a young family. He's got a lot of money. It's very safe. We need this value to be as high as possible.
Well, and make sure that they understand the kind of features of it and what's better about it than the comps. And I may not know that.
I don't purport to like know more than appraisers.
No.
I'm not a real estate agent.
Yeah. Real estate agents aren't aren't appraisers either.
No, I'm
But
just kidding,
yeah, an opinion of value. We can do that. Yeah,
So,
no,
okay.
on your point there on only being nice to people that can offer you something,
Yeah.
that drives me crazy. Like real estate agents that aren't nice to other real estate agents, like just because they don't see them as a possible client. This is the kind of person that is walking around seeing humans as like a dollar sign
Yeah.
and not generally kind and nice.
My buddy Gene McBurney has a saying for people like that.
It's like,
He goes, he's a really efficient guy. He's got friends he hasn't even used yet.
I remember Gene. I met him in Bahamas, right?
Yeah. He's the best.
Yeah, nice guy.
Real efficient guy. Not Gene, but that was his saying. Real efficient guy. He's got friends he hasn't even used yet.
Well, it's just, you just be nice to everybody and just be kind to everybody.
Yeah.
And yes, some people are going to be your clients, some people aren't,
Okay,
but we're all working together.
Back to what I want to get from you.
Yeah.
The lowest price per square foot. What will a condo hit and what will a house hit?
Well, I mean, I think we're almost pretty well there now.
Okay.
So
now it's not 1,000. Now it's still higher than 1,000.
yeah, because like I said, it's going to be skewed by that all the new buildings registering are high per square foot. No one's building value condos. So,
Right.
I mean, they can't. It's way too expensive to build. The levies are way too heavy. It's only going to be on the luxury side from here on. And I think, we're going to see a time when I guess the real estate will come down, the site costs. That's the only really kind of variable. And we'll see building materials come down a bit, but not enough that we're ever going to see
Sub 1,000.
under 1,000 a foot ever built again. And this is, it makes the argument actually to look for the kind of value condos and do some cosmetic work to them. And if they're if you're buying something for $700-800 a foot, say near St. Lawrence Market or some great neighborhood close to the finance, Bay Street corridor.
Who cares if the hallway smells like urine?
Well, no, but when you can customize it, you can, fix it up, and you've got $1,500 a foot across the street from you, and you're paying $7,000. I mean, this is a time to be looking for value, right? That's how I see it.
Okay,
but to answer your question, I mean, I think that I don't think we'll see a huge decrease in average per square foot pricing because new stuff coming on board is so expensive. Even with a price decrease, it's expensive. Even if we see a correction there, it's still a lot more than what's out there. And on the freehold side of thing, I feel the same. I think we'll still see average prices holding where they are in the $1 million world. Or it's different though, depending where you look. It's interesting.
You're right. Toronto does feel insulated to some extent.
It's so all over the board. Like I was looking at November to November, year over year, and obviously we had prices continue to go up and then down or whatever. But there's Georgina Township was 25% down. My neighborhood was 17% down.
Your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Like we were cottages you're talking about?
No, the house.
Really?
17% down. Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
Year over year.
Price?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't even think there'd be that many transactions you know what though? Not a lot of transactions. Highly motivated,
and like I said earlier,
vendors.
Not a lot of really expensive houses. So when you don't have
the guy with the $3 million detached,
they haven't traded.
He's like, I'm not doing anything.
Any of those have sold recently. November, we saw some sales in Leslieville and Riverdale and the 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. There weren't $3-4 million houses that had sold in Jackman or.
You know who our borrower is turning into now?
Who's that?
Our borrower is the family or the individual who has a $2 to $6 million home and has a 50% equity position in it, or more, and who, by virtue of being unable to qualify for a new mortgage or cognizant enough to realize that it's not a good time to break a low rate fixed in order to get $100,000 to cover additional expenses, comes to us for that $100,000.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of one-bedroom purchasers coming to you right now, probably, right?
Listen, there are still purchasers.
They can rent it for, like, when they're running the numbers. That person that's kind of like gotten out of university, got their first job, they're started at a law firm or whatever. They're kind of getting it all figured out, and they go to a mortgage broker and they work out the numbers that it's going to be $4,000 a month to own a one-bedroom condo with maintenance fees and property taxes and the interest payment, a mortgage payment with a high interest rate, rather. Then they see that same condo for rent for $2,600.
Yeah,
it's hard, right, to make
the thing is
to do that.
Is that math now? We did a show on that math. Thanks so much for being such a loyal follower.
I do watch all your videos.
No, but we did one where we picked a couple of condos.
Oh, did you? I didn't see.
And we exactly that's what I'm saying. Like,
oh, sorry. So I'm saying it and I didn't. Yeah, I should have known that you did that already. Sorry.
No, I'm just joking. So we did.
How did that work out? It was obvious that it made no sense.
No,
right? Yeah.
It made sense
To buy?
Like we found, I would say, like Matt pulled out about 5 of them. I think we did 2 or 3 on the show, and because of how high rents are in the city right now.
Because the most recent
like you just said, $2,600 for a 1-bedroom. Good luck.
Yeah, no, they've
go really, find one.
They've really increased in the
like
short term.
Liberty Village. It's $30,000 for a 1-bedroom to start, and you're having a hard time getting it.
But that's still, when they purchase that, will be way more. But
it's $500 a foot. You're paying $3,000 a month for $500 a square foot. Now is the time you buy that.
But the one thing they also got to think of, and they don't always, is the principal prepayment too there, right? Because if they just do the math and they go, oh, it's $700.
It's forced savings.
Yeah, like it's not really.
Right.
If it's $700 more a month to own it, it's not. You're just saving that money.
The math that we did on our show was only $192 more a month to own.
That's principal and interest in the payment. So it's, you got to think that's like it's not a $3,000 a month payment. It's
Joe Schuster way.
Yeah, it's a $2,500 a month payment. $1,200 a month is going into your savings account essentially, right?
Yeah.
You're reducing your debt by $1,200 a month.
And we know that the millennials or the youngest professionals, they're not really much into the saving of money like our, parents and the generations before them.
I tell you something. Nobody saved money like my mother. Nobody saves money
and
like
then she invests it with you too.
Yeah.
So that says something about you're frugal.
She is, honestly. Yeah, I'll tell you something. My mom, I was over there on 2 nights ago, and like every month or whatever that I don't go there once a month. I go there like several times a week. But every month or so, she will give me a check
to put into Oh, there's a few days that, yes.
But like, she doesn't care about that. It's just that like, she is so on point with her savings. And like, it was GICs before I had the MIC. She would just put the money into GICs. But to speak to that, I hope that the savings rate, the kind of Zephyrus family savings rate, doesn't continue the downward trend to my kids.
Right.
Like, I hope that I am the anomaly and we can spike back up.
That your kids aren't ordering the best bottle of wine at the restaurant?
Yeah. No, I want them to enjoy the best bottle of wine.
Okay.
But the best bottle of wine isn't always the most expensive bottle of wine.
This is true. You got to know.
Yeah.
You gotta know your stuff.
Well, the best bottle of wine is the one you like.
Yes.
As long as it's not Camus.
Yes.
That's the worst bottle of wine in any situation.
Okay.
Overpriced. Garbage.
All right. Let me write that down. On the topic of the MIC, and you mentioning your mom investing, I was going to mention that I've been investing with you in the MIC has been like the most easiest experience and stress-free experience.
Amazing.
Because I hated investing in the stock market. I was unhappy, logging in, stressed out about where it was and this. I just thought, you know what, forget it. And I think it's like 10 years now I've been in there with you. And I don't even think about it.
You know what you're going to get in April?
What's that?
The way what we're projecting right now?
Oh.
You will receive the first ever, from what we can tell, the first ever double-digit return of the MIC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just like all of our
So-
mortgages are variable rate
Okay.
in the MIC. Couple that with the fact that we have like 3 very big first mortgage maturities coming back to us. One of them is like a sale that's scheduled to happen on a property. Anyways, so the other 2 are refinances. So all this capital comes back in. They're in first mortgages because we've been like risk off
Mostly,
for the for the last little while.
Yeah.
Like right now, almost 65-70% of the fund is in firsts.
Oh, wow.
Really
That's great.
risk
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
But we're going to redeploy that money now, and we're going to
Yeah, but all that
target,
money coming in, you've got to.
and we're going to target that borrower that I was just telling you about. This is going to be a lot of the MIC borrower is going to be $2 to $6 million home.
But they're not going to be interested in paying double-digit interest.
Of course, listen, it's the market.
Yeah.
There is no one. There are very few lenders operating in the market.
Right. They don't
And
have a choice.
That's not an unfair rate. A double digit sounds horrible, but with a prime rate of 7%, what are we at? 6.95, right? With a prime rate at 7%,
yeah.
and
I know we got to rewire ourselves for
Yeah.
today, right?
like a variable rate mortgage is at prime minus 50, maybe prime minus 1 if it's insured.
Mm-hmm.
Risk on a second mortgage, prime minus 5 is cheap because risk capital is more expensive right now. Like if you think about it like this, if a second mortgage, what's the price of a second mortgage?
What is it?
Yeah, what you as a real estate agent, if I was like, hey Ben, how much is a second mortgage? Put ourselves in a time machine 2 years ago. How much is second mortgage 2 years ago?
I don't know.
Just
8%?
Okay, fine. 8. Yeah, a really, really good borrower. You're between 8 and 12.
Right.
Okay. Probably on the high end would be 12.
Yeah.
16 is like sell your house 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's use your number of 8. Okay. 8% 2 years ago when the prime rate was 2 is a delta of 6,
Yeah. 14.
a premium of 6. Well, if prime's 7, there's 13.
Yeah.
So and in fact, the cost of risk has gone up in this period of time. Like, so
But you're saying that you're going to lend to money that have, to borrowers that have 50% equity in
we do right now anyways.
in a $3 million house?
Yeah. I'm saying that borrower, stronger borrower,
Mm-hmm.
because but our borrowers already have a lot of equity, but the motivation is no longer that they need to fix something. The motivation is like no longer like right now, like bruised credit or insufficient income, and they need to be kind of coached back to find an exit. The motivation now is very simple. There is a macroeconomic headwind that borrowers are facing, and they cannot afford to break their existing first mortgage. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it is far more profitable. Profitable is the wrong word, but the debt servicing cost,
The spreadsheet looks a lot better just not breaking that, paying the
weighted average cost of capital.
and keeping it a short-term window.
Okay, let's think about right now. Okay, Ben Ferguson has a $2 million new build. Okay,
Yes.
and a $500,000 first. You moved in, you took a 5-year fixed rate
This is true. A lot of this. so
1
far.
year ago, and it's a $500,000
Yes.
first mortgage at 2%.
Yep.
But you want furniture and like you want it to be pimping, and it's going to cost $100,000. And your kids are all over you. Like, oh my God, Dad, I want a big screen TV and like whatever. So it's $100, and you unfortunately don't have it in your skinny ripped jeans. So you got to borrow it. You call us up and you're like, okay, I need a new first mortgage. Let's switch the $500,000 mortgage into a $600,000 mortgage. And someone says to you, okay, well, the $600,000 mortgage is going to be at 6% now, as opposed to your $500,000 mortgage, which is at 2%. Or So let's quantify that, right?
Right.
Let's like all things being
Just
constant,
leave that. Put
500,000.
something in second position.
Yeah.
For 10%.
Well, your delta is 4 points on $600,000, which is $24,000 every single year for the next 5 years. You just killed your 2% rate, but you only need $100,000. So as long as $100,000 costs you less than $24,000,
The numbers work. Yeah.
And if you can match the $100,000 to the maturity of your existing first mortgage, and we can do a nice refi at the end, everyone's happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
So if I said to you now, okay, here's $100,000, it's prime plus 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's $13,000 a year as opposed to 24. I think you want to save that $11,000.
Yeah. And I have way less options.
But what I'm saying to you as a MIC investor is that because we are now going back into the market for a specific product that I'm very comfortable with, you're going to see great, better returns with, just taking money. Like we kind of had to park money in firsts as like a GIC mechanism, right?
Yeah, because you had too much cash. You got to keep moving and
No, and I didn't like when inflation was like beginning, when the inflation story was beginning, it really wasn't kind of quantifiable. Like where are we going? And my job is to be as risk off as possible, right? Again, the MIC is for my mom who gives me $20,000 of her savings.
No, I'm like I said, I'm a happy guy ever since I invested in it. And once in a while, I'll pop on your back end there and your log in and take a look at what you guys are doing, and that's about it. I'm not trying to overthink it. I'm sleeping at night.
It's great,
Yeah.
And the other thing, Nick manages all of the investor relations, and he's so great, right?
So relaxed, and
he's just he's very matter of fact. He's invested also. He's a very smart guy, CFA. He makes sure that the website is updated for people. And I hear people call in, not every day, but every couple of days. And I hear him very patiently going through our book with investors. And I just I don't know why I get so much enjoyment out of listening to him. Walk someone through.
A lot of people are asking questions about specific properties you're lending on. And
honestly, a couple of, at least a few times a month, phone calls are coming in. Since inception, it's actually the number one tool for us to get new investors is the investor portal. Because initially, when we started the fund 10 years ago, it was oh yeah, we return about 8% and we invest in real estate. People are like, what? What do you put it in? How do you get 8?
I think you had a little bit of a brochure thing, and I was just like, whatever, here.
Well, you knew me. We've known each other for a long time.
I didn't look at any of it.
Right.
I just gave you the money.
Yeah. But now that investor portal, which has been around for a while now,
it's great.
Is such a great tool because people like you will say oh no, this is how I got the return. These are the properties that
it just makes sense. And I can look at it, and I'll even know some of the properties and kind of do a soft appraisal myself. Say, what's going on here? And because obviously I'm in real estate, so it's interesting. But it's but I don't lose any sleep over it. It's more like a curiosity thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pop in there, see what's going on.
Do you ever lose sleep about business?
No,
never.
No, I think my I just took a year off, and I have a kind of fresh perspective right now. And I'm not saying I ever lost sleep. I'm not a small stuff sweater kind of guy. But when you go through serious stuff, it kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
And you start to understand that you can't sweat the small stuff, as cliche as that is to say. It's true. There's solutions for things. And you can't worry about things that you can solve. You just solve them and you move on. That's what we got to do. Just keep moving and shaking, right? You can't, there's very serious things that we got to worry about. Imminent things, our health and our loved ones' health, and making sure we can provide for our kids and take care of the people that we love. We got to do that. That's important stuff. But, struggles that we have with business and things that we can solve easily. Why worry about that? There's no reason to.
Aren't we programmed to? Doesn't it seem like sometimes, like now in
We put
retrospect,
pressure on ourselves because we want to do a good job for people, because we're good people. And when I say we, I mean my business partner, Matt, I mean you. I know what kind of person you are. You put pressure on yourself too, because you want to do a great job. You want to keep everyone happy. And that's okay. And that's what keeps us sharp. But you also got to sleep at night, right? You got to sleep at night, and you got to, take care of yourself and not sweat the small stuff too much. Because when you're in a problem, it feels way bigger than it is at the time. Because later you look back always and you say, whoa, that was easy. I just did this and this and it's solved. So you have to remind yourself of that when you're in that problem, that you'll be looking back at it later. And it's a solvable thing. Just move on.
what a great perspective.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
So I totally
if you can continually remind yourself, one, not to take it personally. There's something here that we can solve and move on. And two, that in retrospect, when you look back at these things, it's almost a chuckle at times when there was a solution that needed. Just find it. And you're like that. That's absolutely the way you're programmed.
No, I listen. The reason why I bring it up is I've had so many conversations with friends, like really close business acquaintances, like people that rely on me for not just capital, but like advice. And I do sense like kind of like an increase in their level of anxiety lately.
Yes.
And we
got to be each other's therapists.
I don't know if you realize this. Yeah, I don't know if you realize this. My phone has always been forwarded to the office. I unforwarded it
Okay.
in the last like 5 or 6
I
months.
think I told you to do that one day. I said, don't you hate checking voicemail? And you're like, yes, that's smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's unforwarded. You're answering it.
So that if people need me,
You're there.
I'll speak to them right away. Otherwise, it ends up with this buildup of people that have called for me and I know what they want. Like they want like a pat on the back and like, it's going to be okay. This is what I anticipate to be the time horizon of this painful period. And I think that like I know everyone's situation. Like these people that are calling me, I know what their kind of debt and equity situations are. And I try to reinforce that and remind them and get them out of this place of anxiety and dread. And there's so many great quotes like, Marcus Aurelius was like, anxiety and dread is really the only punishment that we solely dole on ourselves. And we are the only ones that are responsible for it, nobody else. And we're the only ones that can take it away.
It's all a matter of perspective always. Right? Like you can look out the window at your house and you can see the birds chirping and the sun shining or a beautiful sunset. Or you can look out at something not so pretty and,
why is my neighbor's house so much better than my house?
Whatever, right?
That's the toxic.
It's all a matter of perspective and putting yourself in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
That's all we try to do.
Good Charlie Munger quote is that the world is not being fueled and destroyed by greed. It's actually being fueled and destroyed by envy.
Yeah. You do have to be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
And grateful for your health and your loved one's health, and that you have a roof over your head, and that we live in Canada.
Yeah.
And I know you have probably global listeners, but at the end of the day, we kind of hit the jackpot to some degree that we're here.
Yeah.
Right? And
as much as we complain, not even just here, Canada, here at this moment in time.
But
like if it was 200 years ago, yeah.
Say what you will about some of it, and perhaps, you can make the argument that social media isn't the healthiest thing in the world. But
dude, 100 years ago, if you were walking on the street, you were at risk of being hit by a pot filled with piss and shit.
Yeah, I know.
Can you imagine that? Somebody was dumping out a pot filled with fecal matter and you were walking down the street.
Just that we have modern toilets and vaccination and, everything that goes with modern medicine. You're right. We're in this my son's a type 1 diabetic.
Right.
100 years ago, he wouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
So in the entire lifespan of the Homo sapien or whatever, type 1 diabetics would just die.
Yeah.
Unless they really figured it out, but it's pretty darn hard without supplementing insulin.
Really? I mean, I know so little about
Yeah, I mean, their pancreas just stops producing, so you just use a synthetic insulin. But originally, it was like animal insulin, and they figured that out at University of Toronto.
I read
up the street from here
You sent me something that I read regarding
100 years ago.
Yeah.
They figured that out. They were just sucking insulin out of animals and then putting it into sick kids, and they were like coming back to life. It's amazing that this happened in Toronto,
Wow.
right? So at the end of the day, you have to be grateful for those things. And you have to remind yourself of what the really important stuff is.
Such a great perspective.
And we're going to get by. We're going to get through tough times because we're resilient and strong and smart. We just have to focus on the important things and keep a positive perspective always, because this is going to be a short term.
It certainly feels that way. Like
when you're in it, it's like being in the bottom of the ocean, and it's like you can't really see what's going on around you. I have a pretty fresh perspective because I was off for a year, first of all. But, when you kind of pull yourself up out of the ocean and you look and you kind of see where everything is, you just think of it as like, in the grand scheme of things, this will be a pretty short period, in my opinion, that things will be difficult for, and we'll be in a better place. Well, in a year from now, we've decided, right? I've decided.
I'm trying to get you.
You're saying like 2 years from now. What do you say?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Next Christmas, are we going out for dinner and celebrating a better economic place or a better Toronto real estate place?
Listen, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there are probably 2 dates that are important. I think one date would be the best time to enter the real estate market.
The first time the interest rates start to go down?
Yeah, no, I think that,
or when they say the rates are over.
Yeah, I think that point will be like, you can mark it on your calendar. It's the day that the Federal Reserve, it's not even the Bank of Canada.
It's going to be the states that's going to.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Do they always just mimic what they do?
For the most part. Yeah, otherwise, the currencies kind of get out of whack, right? But the Federal Reserve will come out and they'll say, we have done a sufficient amount to stop inflation, and our readings we're very happy with our readings, and we're going to hold the federal funds rate where it is. That will be the date to enter the market. And the perfect date is like before that. Because leading up to that date, the Federal Reserve is going to overcorrect it's going to over increase interest rates if it does anything. Because it's so worried about the credibility that it lost by saying there's no inflation for such an extended period of time. Like, you got to think that there's 2 crises here. The first most immediate crisis is inflation. The second crisis, which everyone will talk about after inflation, is the lack of confidence people have in central bankers. Because what we were told 2 years ago, 3 years ago was, number one, the easing of monetary and fiscal policy will have no impact on inflation. Number two, when inflation did creep into the market, this inflation is transitory. You remember these things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then they came in with, we are going to increase interest rates at the fastest, most dramatic as a percentage rate ever in the history to stop inflation.
Mm-hmm.
If they let the foot off the gas, brakes. If they take their foot off the brakes too soon and ease back on interest rates, and inflation somehow creeps back into the market, their credibility is toast. So they're going to overcorrect to the like they're going to they would much rather a recession happen than somehow be accused of missing it again.
When I break this down from a practical perspective and back down in the trenches and on the streets and what the purchaser's mindset, when you say that's the time to enter the market, the problem with that statement is that the uniqueness of the property that you're looking for is the biggest consideration when you make this statement. Like, if you're just looking for a 1-bedroom condo downtown and you want to buy at the absolute bottom, I mean, this isn't the stock market. That's just
fair enough.
You're purchasing, like, if you're looking in a certain school district and you want this and you want a beautiful ravine property, like my friend Marcus has, or you want a certain thing. You have the process of searching for the property that works for you or your family isn't one that allows for the thing to just be there available when you've decided that that's when they enter the market. So the thing that's the right fit for you may only come around every 3-6 months or a year,
And it doesn't come around in the hottest
time
market.
it absolutely perfectly
Yeah, fair enough.
on the bottom.
Yeah.
And if you buy the house that's perfect for you, and you get the price that's perfect for you, and prices keep coming down 5% after, but then they go up 30% in the next 10 years, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? It's more about finding the right fit. We know we're pretty close to the bottom right now. And I feel that way anyways. When we see the November numbers, and we're pretty close to the top of the interest rate increases, we would think. So, logic would tell us that, we're probably near the bottom. So if you see the right fit and the thing you've been looking for come up, the house you've been looking for, the condo, if you have specific needs, you jump on it now. That's how I see it.
I should apologize because
Yeah.
when I talk about it, I don't think about
On the s-
specific
yeah.
use cases. I just always think per square foot price of condo and average home sold in GTA. And those two numbers are kind of what I'm thinking about. And I'm thinking if you are an investor, because that's all I think about. I think about those averages and how they're going to affect the book value and my ability to lend money and the risk associated with people borrowing.
Mhm.
So I believe that best time to enter the market. So
As an investor,
the sweetest time
the
to
investors
lend.
are going to be soft for a while, I would think.
Okay.
Unless you're making, as an investor, everybody buying their house to live in.
Yeah, I just think what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to track are the best time to enter in, thinking of it exactly like a stock market.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm thinking of it as when is the least risky time to
Yes.
lend people money based on the average per square foot price of a condo, the average selling price of a home. Okay.
But it's kind of making the assumption that it's readily available too when you say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a commodity.
Yeah.
The way I'm thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
It's the average of all of it. So I think that the best time is going to be kind of a little bit before the peak fear of the whole thing will be a little bit before the Fed comes out and says we're no longer increasing interest rates,
The other thing is that
which I think is
soonish, right?
I think is within the next 6 months.
It's going to be probably in late winter or something, I would think, right? Early spring.
It
If
will
you're
be
guessing.
in the spring.
Yeah.
It will be in the spring. And I think that by the fall, we will have an economy that has degraded sufficiently, and we will have an environment where we're talking about decreasing interest rates. And by 2024, the spring market of 2024, I think is going to be gangbusters.
One thing to consider, taking it back to the street level conversation, not the high level Marcus Safaris.
It's not high level. I'm just
is that because we don't have the multiple offers that we had for so long, that the opportunities are there because of that to negotiate. Whereas when there was 17 offers on a premium property, that's pretty difficult to get a good deal. So there'll be more opportunities just because of that lack of offers and it being a buyer's market.
You know what? Before we go, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little more about how they can find you if they want more information about buying or selling? Because I will tell you something. Ben Ferguson, I've known him and Matt, his partner, for over 20 years. And I can't think of a more gracious, honest, but more importantly, intelligent, knowledgeable, the market. And even if you just buying a house with somebody or selling a house with somebody is a very personal, intimate thing. And you want to do it with somebody that you get along with and that maybe you have something to learn from. And I think anybody that watched this podcast or listened to this podcast learned something from you today.
I hope so. And thank you.
Even just
Kind
about
word.
don't sweat the small stuff. Like actually, that I don't know why I felt so calm. I was going to fall asleep like right here.
Do you want me to read some bedtime stories?
Yeah, maybe after. Let's see how the wine goes. Don't push your luck, okay? I can promise you a glass of wine. After that, it's up to you.
So to answer your question, they can find us if you just Google Matt and Ben. We are a team that focuses on Toronto, really all over Toronto. Our office is in the East End, but we have offices all over the place. And there's Matt and myself and Pavel and Andrew and an awesome assistant who's Danielle right now, Matt's wife, because Alyssa, our assistant, is on maternity.
Oh,
And if you just Google us, Matt and Ben, Remax Hallmark, you'll find us on Facebook and on Google. And I'd love to talk to anybody about real estate. I actually like people and like talking to people. And I think at the end of the day, you and I have that in common.
Mhm.
You can't fake that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like people try and fake it. And we certainly see that in our business. We're both kind of salesmen at the end of the day, right? But I like talking to people. I'm curious about people. I like hearing their stories. I like going to their homes. So it's good that I got in real estate because it would have been creepy going into their homes. I wasn't a real estate agent.
Can you show everyone the Christmas card?
Oh yeah. We are in our pajamas here.
How cute is that?
Matching pajamas. I think we look great.
You guys are the cutest. Like you've had some really, really great ones.
Have you done matching pajamas with your team before?
With my kids.
Yeah, no, the team here.
No, we don't need to wear matching pajamas to feel like a family. Like our Christmas party was a dinner, and it started getting circled around that Christmas party can't start at 7. Like it's too late. Like we should do this. Why don't we do this at 5 before the dinner? And then somebody else was like, okay, great, but why don't we do this and start at 3 before the thing? Like it's just like everybody wants to spend more and more time together, right? It's great.
Didn't you take a trip with the gang too to Bahamas or to?
Yeah. We used to do before COVID. We did a trip every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That you treat your.
They treat me
And they stay.
and each other. Yeah, no one.
How
leaves.
long has Phil been working with you?
I mean,
10 years? 12?
more.
Yeah, like a long time.
When I was at Dundas, right? So maybe 15 years.
Oh, he was at Dundas. Yeah, Phil is so fantastic.
Everybody on the team is amazing.
He just brings down the level of stress. If there's just like you do, if there's something tricky in a deal, when you talk to him, you feel more relaxed after you do, which is important.
It always works out. Like you said it. It really
going to
is.
work out.
And the other thing is like I've been in so many stressful situations that I can tell you definitively that the lens in which you look at your situation when you are in a stressful situation
totally different.
is distorted.
Yes.
It's like a funny house glass, right? Like don't trust it.
No.
Set an objective and set your goals and just get through it.
And remember, there's 1,000 other times you were in that spot that you solved it.
And
you don't even think about those times anymore.
And rely on, and hopefully you have people that you can rely on to help you with that when you're in that.
Yeah.
That's the one, I feel bad for the people that are in that situation and they're they haven't been in it. It's the first time they've been in something super challenging. And I think more and more people are going to be in this situation where they're in this challenging environment.
And they might need a bit of help.
And there's anxiety and there's dread. And we just came out of a period for 2 years where everyone was filled with anxiety and dread. We're going into a new period where everyone's filled with anxiety and dread now. It was COVID. Now it's going to be debt. And
not everybody.
Fine. Not
everybody.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's important that those people that are perhaps more susceptible to the anxiety and dread that gets created by these stressful situations find support. It's not just find a great real estate agent or find a good mortgage broker, but real, actual support. Because 'Cause
we're a
it's-
village. We're a village.
Yeah,
We have
it's a
we have to
challenging
pull
time.
Each other up. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we lean on each other, we it just works out better.
we're stronger.
We are stronger. Oh, we should be all hugging each other.
We're gonna hug right now. All right.
Okay.